I'm not a scientist. I work for a foundation, which means I didn't go into the experimental details that much, but I'm more interested in the big vision. So let's start thinking about pain. It's arguably the most universal kind of subjective experience. Everybody knows what it is. It's conceptually simple. Billions of dollars go every year to treating pain, yet instead of having effective treatments, there's an opioid crisis. Why is that? Could it be maybe that subjective experience or consciousness is something we know almost nothing about? I think of consciousness as a foundational concept for big questions relating to artificial intelligence, pain management, and mental health. Studying consciousness could give us better tools and practices for those areas, but it's very difficult. So I live and work in the Bahamas, which means naturally I think of consciousness as a bit like exploring the ocean. It could be that there's nothing at the surface but a huge amount going on underneath. If you want to explore it, you need new technology, you need to plan it very well, but most importantly, you need to know where to look. If you look in the right places, you can make great discoveries. If you look in the wrong places, well, you could find nothing at all or just trash. So our foundation's goals for exploring consciousness is firstly to figure out where to look, what we should be studying. This means separating the crazy theories from the testable theories. It means narrowing down testable theories to see which ones are robust. And once we can do that, oh, can I go back? Yeah, once we can do that, we want to think about new practices and treatments. But that is a sort of moonshot kind of goal. So that's not just running a clinical trial. To apply a robust theory to practices and coming to new treatments, you need to build a community of inquiry. We need better infrastructure for data sharing. And there needs to be the conceptual tools necessary for people from different organizations to work together. Naturally, many people are skeptical about studying consciousness, and there are good reasons. At the very least, the word consciousness in the English language, for those who want to get a subscription to the Oxford English Dictionary, conscious and consciousness, 15 different kinds of definitions. There are just too many. And without getting clarity, people are not going to be talking about the same thing. Secondly, the brain is complicated. As was mentioned earlier, it's arguably the most complex object in the universe. And the example I often use is in 1838, Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann first claimed that all living things are made of cells. Plants, animals made of cells. That seems really obvious now. And it was accepted very quickly, except for neurons. It took almost another 50 years for that to be established for brain cells because it's so complicated. Those cells are fragile, they're messy, it's really difficult to work with them. And finally, the way that funding is being given out to scientists is really outdated. Generally, people look for the lone genius scientist who's going to solve the problem instead of trying to fund teams that work together. And generally, the reward is for having some kind of high-impact publication rather than for focusing on the quality of the research. So those are all challenges we would have to overcome. And I'm going to tell you a bit about how we approach it, what we've done so far, and then just finishing off on the big vision of how we hope we can move forward. This is a funnel-shaped pipeline. At the top, there are lots of crazy theories. There are so many crazy theories and untestable theories. Some of them need to be discarded. Others need to be developed to become testable theories. And the testable theories need to undergo empirical scrutiny so that some of those could be discarded and we can figure out which ones are more robust. And if we can do that, some of the robust theories could be applied in specific contexts to start to look for new kinds of breakthrough applications. Now, this is not a small goal. It could take 100 million to demonstrate success on this sort of thing. Our foundation has committed $20 million for this work, and we're actively partnering with other organizations to try and see it through. I will tell you a little bit about what we have done so far, and then come back to the big picture later. These are all the theories on our radar. There is 11 different, I mean, these are not even just the theories, these are groups of theories, different groups of theories. The people mentioned are the people I have come in contact with or that I know about, but there may be people associated with these theories who are not mentioned here, and if you're one of them, I apologize. And what I'll also say is within these boxes, not everyone would agree. There could be very different theories in these boxes. So should we fund all of them? Many of them are incompatible. They can't all be right. And I don't think we necessarily should try and support all those theories, because you could put huge amounts of money into, even if it's just 11 major ideas, to test those would be pretty difficult. So let me use a metaphor to explain why I think we should not just go and fund all the theories. Imagine you're a doctor and you're trying to diagnose a patient. Are you going to run all the tests at the same time to see what shows up? Of course not. You'll probably try and run some tests to rule out a bunch of conditions, because then you can focus your efforts on a smaller number of opportunities. And that's the kind of thing we're trying to do. We're trying to rule out some theories so that we can focus resources on a smaller number of them. Now, how do you do that? Thankfully, the scientists in the field are very good at coming up for killer ideas for each other, and they're very open to being tested. But until recently, there just wasn't a funding mechanism to support that kind of collaboration. So here's what we did. The usual approach is at the top. Essentially, foundations sometimes give money to different theorists. They go do their thing. They can have excellent research. It could be an honest study. They can have great findings. But it's very hard for them to disprove each other, because a theorist can always come up with some minute detail that trips up the experiment, criticizes them. Our approach is called structured adversarial collaboration. We run a workshop where the leaders of incompatible theories come together. We challenge them to come up with an experiment that tests the incompatible predictions of their theory. We require that they write up the entire experiment, state which outcome will kill their theory, and sign off to it. We bring in all the best practices in open science to keep it rigorous and transparent. And the idea is that the findings will be accepted, more easily. With our $20 million commitment, we expect we can fund 5 projects. These are the ones currently on our radar. The first one is an active grant, and the PI, Lucia Melanie, is sitting here, so do ask her about it. The other 4 are still in the stage where different leaders of different theories are coming up with ideas for experiments, and for each of those, we set money aside as sort of an incentive that they're not in competition with anyone else. But our standards are really high. They have to come up with those testable predictions and specific things that will kill their theory. If they can't do it, we then go and look for another combination. So it's, we try to keep it as rigorous as we can. So I mentioned a bit about what we have done so far, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done. We need to have conceptual tools to distinguish between testable theories and not testable theories. We need better ways to make theories testable, and we need more community building activities. Breakthrough applications are a really long vision, and we're not going to get there very quickly, but this slide shows an outline of the kinds of activities that we envision in the field on top of what is already being done that would be needed to get us there. So our foundation has committed money for adversarial collaboration. We think that needs to be doubled, and we think it doesn't necessarily have to be experiments. You can get leaders from compatible theories to work together. and create a unified theory. Conceptual tools and community building activities would be needed for people to share their data and to share the experiments that they've done so that we can make sure they speak the same language. And the grand challenges is a grant-making mechanism. The Gates Foundation pioneered. It's been used for a really long time to come up with breakthrough applications. And that's something we think can be used once we know what the robust theories are, once we know where we should invest and shouldn't invest. So are we close to knowing all the mysteries of consciousness? Probably not. But if it would otherwise take 100 years to do it, I think that by having smart investments and greater collaboration, we can maybe cut that down to 50. And that's the sort of scale of success that I think would be both realistic and worth going for. Thank you.